Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the panel discussion hosted by Next Time on New Age Selling, a customer-centric approach to sales using AI. I am Rishu Sharma from the Global Marketing team at Next Time. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Next Time to our audience. Next Time is an employee-owned, independent global advisory organization that has been supporting multinational companies in their various business strategies and projects since the late 1990s. We have helped businesses from over 50 countries across their functions to optimize their processes to churn out better efficiencies. Next Time has been the recipient of multiple accolades. We were honored to receive the International Accounting Bulletin for Advisory Project of the Year in both 2017 and 2019. Additionally, we are constantly rated by Euromoney to be among the world's leading tax and transfer pricing firms. Next Time provides multifunctional and digital capabilities across business services and professional services. We provide both public and privately held firms with integrated solutions, navigating their complex challenges. We are industry agnostic and work with a vast array of businesses: industrial, banking, private equity, telecommunications, food processing, aviation, healthcare, etc. Next Time prides itself to feature in leading business journals. We collaborate with industry leaders by hosting virtual events on subjects that are challenging to the industry at large. Today's agenda is concise. Keeping in mind the shift towards digital and analytics, we will first discuss in brief global changing paradigm, key challenges faced by sales leaders, and the role of analytics in driving sales transformation. We will then move on to our esteemed panel members to share their observations and insights to guide us on how to plan sales analytics journey. We will conclude with key takeaways from the discussion and brief audience question and answer session. For giving the keynote address, I would like to invite Karthik Nagarajan. Karthik is a Managing Director for Business Process Management, Data Analytics, and Operations Excellence at Next Time. Welcome, Karthik, and over to you.
Thank you, Rishu, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody across the globe. As part of my portfolio, I do lead the global delivery and sales. And let me tell you, with the challenging COVID times, we've seen some organizations actually literally struggling to get the top line moving, while some others very interestingly took advantage of this challenging environment. And I know many global head of sales and marketing today who are facing a daunting task of meeting their top line and the numbers, the sales numbers. Till date, they are grappling with the major changes that has already happened in the market due to growing competition, due to empowered customer who got a lot of information at the drop of a button, and through increased reach, digitization is the key for the reach, right? Gone are the days wherein we could have a standard product or service and can grow the account in the B2B space, primarily with the relationship and partnership approach. One major shift that we have noticed in the buying patterns of the B2B environment is the one-size-fits-all approach is not the norm anymore. We need to come out with a more personalized strategy for selling. With a limited sales force and growing untapped opportunity, there is a need for us to relook at the trends and chalk out the strategy accordingly. Data and technology, therefore, becomes even more critical to meet this demand. With all of these combined forces at work, most companies now need to think or rethink their sales strategy to service this customer base in the most efficient and yet cost-effective ways. Viral, over to the next slide. This brings to an interesting topic, or the reconvincing of why do we need analytics in sales. As a part of this need, we need to be now convinced about the usage of analytics, right? And while everybody would agree that analytics brings a lot of value, let me touch upon some of the data points that we have to enhance the decision. We've taken the Forbes survey for 2019. While some might say this is not a recent one, but I firmly believe this still holds a lot of information for us to get to a right decision point. As per the top 200 global sales and marketing leaders who are part of that survey, investing in customer analytics are reaping significant benefits to their top line. 40% of the global sales leaders believe that customer personalization efforts have directly impacted their sales, their basket size, and even profits. Similarly, among analytic leaders, 54% reported that they exceeded their revenue targets over the past year, compared with only 15% for laggards. All in all, there is a very good and strong case for us to invest heavily in analytics to improve the top line. So moving on to the next one, which is therefore what is needed? How do we make it work? We need a consolidated view of all the activities we do for the customer with a personalized approach for every given customer, but a standard set of activities done by every person in the sales team. The visibility could only be provided by analytics. So today, if there is a sales engine, we need a standard approach for that one customer we're talking about, starting from the lead generation to solutioning, to engagement, to closure, and to delivery. That entire visibility that we need for that one customer could be provided by analytics. The other benefits of using analytics also involves creating a good visibility within the sales personnel, a true value articulation, and a value creation. Last but not the least, we also need, while sales is always talked about the top line, we also need to relook at having a very efficient sales effort in terms of the cost, because whatever the investment an organization is making in terms of hiring the sales team and so on and so forth, we need to ensure that is being optimally utilized. So therefore, we need to have a sharper approach to sales, thereby reducing wastage and optimizing the cost of investing in sales. So these are the gamuts that we need to make it happen. In terms of the customer centricity, going back to where we started from, we want to use analytics to ensure that we have the right customer to target with, the solution that fits in the value they are looking for, articulate the benefits, form a credible relationship of trust, which is the skill and the will, and partner with the delivery team post-sales to give the customers end-to-end experience. This is the right time for even a sales team to ensure that they control not only the start of the engagement, but even the post-sales, so that the customer centricity is the core of selling process. And that is what the true benefit. And analytics can help all the sales leaders globally to help them achieve this. Now let's look at some of the use cases, right? Traditionally, we all know that the B2B sellers have relied heavily on experience of sales reps, personal relationships, negotiation skills to guide a sales strategy. Let's take a rather quick look in what ways analytics can lend support to your sales enablement. Let's start with customer targeting. According to an industry survey, sales reps spend close to 50 to 60% time interacting with the customers, using the predictive analytics to create a sales propensity score can help in improving the accuracy of lead generation and can also focus on targeting only high value prospects. By answering questions like which lead has the highest potential to convert, which customers do we approach for a product or services, and what is the right strategy, all these customers targeting can be given by the predictive analytics based on the past data, which is the internal one and the industry one. The second thing that even analytics can do is also open up the penetration opportunities. By using customer segmentation, geospatial analytics, and lookalike models, we can suggest the right mix of products for the right customers. Customers with similar behavior can now be clustered based on facts such as geos, industry vertical, past purchase, ticket size, and therefore, if we are able to sell to one level of customer of one product and one services, we can extend the same scope across the globe. So that's the power of analytics purely from usage cases. And if you could look at this infographics, there is a clear-cut potential for us to transform every nook and corner of sales function. All of this ultimately leads to two major goalposts. One, moving towards personal engagement, Second, enhancing customer centricity for a lifetime value. So these are the two benefits we are looking at achieving. Moving on to the next one. If you look at the analytics framework, this is the backbone of what we do at Nextime in using the analytics. The tools are given at the bottom. So we start with using the raw data, use them to convert into data warehouse that then gets culminated into the dashboards of the existing data. And this then gets recommended into the predictive analysis of the key drivers, the opportunities, and the threats. And finally, all this gets combined into the recommendation. Now, if you're able to implement the recommendation that the data gives us proactively, the chances are, because the action, the time to action is equally important, right? Data can only give you recommendation, but the implementation is purely with, in your hands. If you're able to have a quick call to action, then overall that we've seen, this framework has worked for many of our Fortune 50 and Fortune 500 customers across the globe. So therefore, what are the key takeaways? The number one is customer centricity is the key differentiator. There is a lot of disruption that's already happened. So we need to look at ways to engage with the new customer base that we have. We have to derive a lot of value with the data, right? There is a lot of data lying all over within the organization, within the industry, but it is upon us, how do we use the data proactively to our advantage and to the customer's advantage. Last but not the least, getting it right, identifying the problem areas and prioritization of solution of various analytics initiatives, very important. So therefore, analytics should be at the core of not only the sales as a department, but overall as an organization for that to be leveraged. So with that, I want to thank everybody. If any over the audience have any questions, please post it to Rishu or please write to us. We'll be more than happy to help you. Over to Rishu. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Karthik. Thank you so much. And I'm sure the audience has benefited from the details shared by you. To take us through the panel discussion now, I would like to invite Amit Kumar. Amit is a Director for Business Service Advisory at Nextime and also will be the moderator for the panel discussion. Welcome, Amit, and over to you.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, Ishu. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. I would want to quickly introduce our esteemed panelists for session. First of all, we have Amit, Anil Iyer. He is the former Chief Commercial Officer at GSK. Anil, can wave your hand. Yes, thank you. Next, we have is Premal. Premal is the Commercial Director at Bosch & Lomb. Welcome, Premal. And third panelist we have is Robert. He is the Vice President for International Business at Panther Medical Equipment. Welcome, Robert. I also would welcome Karthik to join the panel as well.
Hi, guys.
So let's quickly get down to it. So before we begin, a couple of quick pointers. So first is the audience will continue to be in the listen-only mode itself during this session. If you have any questions for our panelists, do share with us to the chat box itself, and we'll be happy to address them towards the end of the webinar. Any question, that number of questions, we'll look to also address them separately as well offline. So in the previous session, Karthik mentioned about the changing paradigm of the sales function itself and how does analytics and AI fit into the equation of this change. He also touched upon some of the possible approaches and a couple of use cases which will be relevant for this. Now, in this panel discussion, we'll look to take this conversation further and we'll look to hear from our esteemed panelists about their experience of the same. But before we go there, we would want to have a audience poll to get a sense from the audience itself of what they feel about whether the sales function has changed during the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as do it fundamentally would look to shift as we go forward. So Viral, if you can put on the audience poll right now. So everyone would be able to see a poll now. So do select on the suitable option from your side. This will be there for next 10 or 10-15 seconds. So through this poll, we look to understand insight from the audience. Uh, can you hear the results? Oh, wow. So it basically says, the results says that pretty much everyone agrees that due to COVID, the sales function would need to change and transform itself as it goes forward. 58% of them actually feels very strongly this is already happening and will continue, while 42% also moderately agree as well. So keeping this theme in, let's start hearing from our panelist itself. So before we touch upon the COVID, how it's changing the sales operation itself, my first question is to you, Anil. In terms of what is the current state of B2B sales look like as a business leader? What are the key challenges that the sales team typically face in the business? Alin, you're on mute.
Not a techno geek. So it is a very relevant question. If you go back even a decade or maybe a decade and a half, you will see in many B2B sales, the front end salesperson would be the only contact point between the customer and the company. And therefore, he or she would have full control or full understanding of what journey the customer is going through, what Karthik mentioned about starting from lead, going all the way to fruition of a need that is generated during the process. So the salesman and maybe a couple of people around him would have full knowledge of what is going on. If you see over a period in time as B2B has expanded, today the customer is exposed to multiple channels. Multiple channels not only from the company, where he or she is exposed to information through I would guess more than half a dozen to a dozen channels on what decision needs to be made, what's the right thing to do, what's the science behind it. If it's a drug, what's the science behind it? Why should something be happening? He could be attending a webinar or a conference or whatever. He would also be, on the other hand, at the same time, researching on his own on the subject that is at hand. So the customer journey has suddenly gone out of control of this single point contact, the interaction that was taking place between the company employee and the customer. Now, the biggest challenge in any sales organization then becomes, how do you map the customer journey? What is the customer going through? What stage is the customer in the journey that they are in? Are they still sitting at information seeking stage? Have they moved from information seeking to a choice set of alternatives? Are they making decisions? This becomes extremely critical for any sales organization. Post-COVID, this has become even more complex as large number of contacts have now gone online with interspersed with face-to-face conversations. So how do you actually control this whole thing and make sure that the journey of the customer has two things? One is he's moving in a specific direction, that is right. And second, the customer experience across multiple channel points that the customer is engaging with the company is consistent, not only with the message, but the touch and feel of the contact that takes place. And I will give you the context of FMCG here. I mean, all of us shop on Amazon or Flipkart or multiple e-commerce sites. And sometimes it is very interesting to note, and I was actually yesterday, we were watching something on YouTube. I went to search on Chrome on it. It automatically typed what I was looking for on YouTube. Imagine the level of hyper-personalization that this data is allowing you to do. Scary, but I will leave you with that thought.
Sure, thanks. Thanks, Anil. That's, I think, great perspective. Coming to you, Robert, you have been in the healthcare industry for a long time. You have been, so the healthcare providers been at the center of the fight against COVID. What do you feel are the key unforeseen challenges and disruption that you have actually faced during COVID itself? And how have you, what strategy have you employed with respect to it?
Okay. Yes, the challenges has been disruptions in the sales day-to-day activities. So our sales tools that we were so dependent with has been removed from our hands. So lack of OR presentation, demos of new products, all the congress gone, the masterclass trainings gone, hospitals visits become extremely complicated depending on the situation. Sometimes you can go, sometimes you cannot. So also another big headache has been the demand uncertainty, up and downs depending on the COVID situation. So forecasting has become a big headache on. Our first response was to reassure and support customers and distribution partners that we keep being here. We are keep working.
Robert, we are not able to hear you very clearly. If you can talk a bit loudly, please.
Okay. Yeah, our first response now is better.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Our first response was to reassure and support the customers and distribution partners. Yeah. What I was saying before, it was the challenges of our day-to-day sales activities, no? That all our sales tools was removed from us, right? And the demand and uncertainty that it came, no, with big ups and downs depending on the COVID situation. So forecasting has become a huge headache. So the decision was to increase some of the digital mediums, more webinars to engage the final users, okay, and explore more channels for bringing sales. Train the sales for digital selling, and another thing that has been also a big challenge is digital training. So how to train and how to engage the trainings through Zoom, right? And keep customers engaged through digital meetings, training updates. Also, we use social media much more than before, and enhancement of the cloud tools with the in-service videos. We've done many in-service videos, very detailed ones, more thinking for nurses, more thinking for sales. And also we've done OR using guides to be hung at the OR walls. This has been something that we didn't have before, and it's been very useful. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks, Robert. Uh, uh, Primal, what is your perspective of how the COVID has impacted the sales and what strategies have you employed to stay connected with your customers, distribution network? Primal, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Yes. That's fine.
Hi. So as rightly Anil and Robert mentioned that there has been a paradigm shift in the way the sales has been done all these years. It has been always been hardwired into all the sales team people that the satisfaction and customer service can be achieved only by face-to-face meetings and demonstration, either in their consulting rooms or in their operating theaters in the healthcare scenario, or when you look at a healthcare provider scenario, it is touching the patients and through various activities, whether it is above the line or below the line, VTL, ATLs, whichever way. So this brought in a whole paradigm shift in the way you looked at the things in terms of how do you communicate to your end consumer or a customer. And the basic strategy, across all the industries has been how do we maintain that line of communication across board, maintaining the quality and the content of the message being the same across all the channels through which the communication is passing through. So we use, there was an extensive use of social media by which you needed to communicate to all your internal as well as the external customers. Because internal customers also, earlier you had meetings or face-to-face meetings or works with all your sales team members, which was also put on a hold. So how do you maintain those communication lines open with the internal customers, whether it was a distributor, whether it was a sales team member or external customers or consumers, whichever it is. So there was, as Robert rightly said, there were multiple training programs which were done across by the use of various digital platforms, whether it was a Zoom or a Microsoft Teams or Google video, or whichever way. And also this also helped us to connect because of this lull in the way the things were happening. Many of this, in the healthcare industry, for example, most of the specialized, other than the COVID patients, or the hospitals which were healthcare providers which were there, the surgeons or the paramedical staff, they were doing nothing, sitting around at their respective places because the patient flow was virtually trickle down to zero, barring some emergency procedures which were happening. So in those cases, it was a unique opportunity also to touch base with all the paramedical staff, give them trainings in terms of what are the recent developments, because in a day-to-day scenario, it was very difficult to get hold of those paramedical staff and train them or upgrade their skills. So this was an opportunity through various platforms like Zooms and online training platforms. We could touch base with them. There were cases where even the support functions of many of these consumers, I mean, a B2B business, I mean, in terms of whether it is, let's say if it's a hospital, how do you train a hospital store guy in terms of optimal inventory measurement, or helping him rationalize his inventory during this uneven even for demand and supply cycle. So various opportunities to basically keep the communications open and keep training all the customers and the supporting staff. That was one of the main strategies which I saw and which we had implemented in the organization and across other organizations, which was there.
Sure, thanks. Thanks, Sunil. Very interesting. Karthik, moving to you, as a consultant, you would have interacted with quite a few business leaders, right?
Correct.
So how do you think that the COVID has impacted the sales strategy from longer term perspective itself? So in particular, what changes you have seen in the customer requirements? Has the expectation still changed from the customer and the client? So what is your perspective on it?
Right, and thanks for bringing this up, because obviously you always need, right, typically an advisory, our view as well. But being also, like I said, the start of the discussion, being a global sales leader myself, right, I have my own team. We're selling to our customers. I think the sales functioning has been, literally disrupted post-COVID, especially, and I feel it's going to be very beneficial in the longer version, right? The need for in-person meetings and follow-ups, etc., has changed its course, obviously, right? We don't get to meet the customer in person, so it's all through technology. With the digital engagements and the remote selling, now I call it remote selling, it's proving very effective, actually. In fact, bringing in a lot of value to the customer. Gone are the days when, let's say, if I have to get 7 people on the same customer meet, it is not that easy. These days, you can get more the merrier. Even some customers, they prefer the solutioning to be in the second half, lead to be first half. So I can have 2 different lot of engagements in the same video conference. So that's possible. From a cost perspective, it brings in a lot of savings, right? I mean, especially from travel, business meetings, etc., in the hotels or in the conference room, those are gone. And therefore, this is substantiated by the latest industry survey that only 20% of the B2B sellers hope to return to the same sales model as before, which means the majority have already agreed and also reap the benefit of remote selling. Easier said than done. So this is also accelerate the shift, by the way, towards the adoption of digital channels, CRM softwares, and other many productivity tracking and productivity boosting tools. And most important of all, the analytics-backed and customer-oriented approach towards sales. I think the organization that have adopted ahead or gone ahead and adopted those digital channels, CRM softwares, and the analytics-backed approach, they're already leading by miles, right? So they're not even thinking about going back to the old model. And therefore, we also expect a rewiring of the key account management. We all believe, right, that the key account management is a strategy for many, many organizations wherein they're focused and they give specialized services to those accounts. And that has shifted mainly from a relation-based and a sales-driven to a purely value-based and data-driven approach. Therefore, from a long-term perspective, Amit, I see more and more companies moving towards multi-touchpoint systems, more and more companies adopting the omni-channel sales approach, setting up bots for engagement, maybe automating some of the repetitive steps, even in sales task force, and therefore freeing up their time to build for a more meaningful value addition activities for the customers. So there is a huge shift that has already happened. I would urge organizations to relook at the existing model if they're not changed much. So that's my 2 cents.
Sure, thanks. Thanks, Karthik. So some very interesting views. Quick pointers which I kind of jotted down from the conversation. So Anil spoke about the hyper personalization, right? That's a journey which B2C is already there, and how B2B can move towards that itself. How to map the customer journey, Robert mentioned about having digital medium incorporation in the process itself, and to then leverage that from training perspective for Salesforce. Premal talked about newer opportunities itself, right? So while this is a concern right now, how do you use that as an opportunity? Look at it from the other side itself, and hence training of the paramedic staff. And Karthik mentioned about taking the step further from digital piece to uh, how we can move towards a multi-channel, multi touch points, omni-channel and bot bit, where we integrate the channels along with the analysis, analytics, and data along with that, right? So I think that's some very interesting views. So thanks all for that. So moving on to now the next bit, where we would explore more in terms of the role of analytics now in the sales function itself. So let's do a quick poll to get a sense of how audience feels about which of the areas of analytics, or which of the area of sales would analytics contribute more in itself, and what is the most pressing need normally for organization. So Viral, if you can put out the poll, please. Right. So this essentially talks about what is the most pressing need for organization to implement analytics. So which particular problem statement we're trying to solve, right? What the business leaders want the analytics to solve itself. And there are 5 options here. So we just wait for 10 odd seconds of people to put in their options. Possible, yes. So can we have the results? So, okay, so this is interesting, right? So this is interesting. So uh, uh, quite a fair distribution itself. So 33% wants to look at customer satisfaction, retention as a key goal. 28% want to look at insights of customer behavior, 22% looking at sales force productivity improvement, and 17% looking at sales funnel itself. Uh, so this kind of indicates a couple of things in my mind. So first is that analytics can help across multiple areas of the sales and solve different problems itself. So that's the expectation on the analytics and AI to look at this different areas and to solve them itself. And secondly, at all the organization at different point of time would have different priorities and needs. So that needs will keep on changing itself. So hence there need to be a hand holding in that way, or handshake between what analytics projects are going on versus what the need is itself. So you want to pick up the most pressing need normally. So with that being the case, I move to the next question, and that's to you, Anil. Uh, so what do you feel is the role of technology, specifically data and analytics, which is placed in meeting the customer needs, and the changes, the customer need also has been changing, right, over a period of time now. So how does it plays that role? And especially, if you give some examples of what is the new and innovative applications of analytics and AI that you have seen in sales?
So there are a couple of use cases that I have my own personal experience in. So let's look at pure B2B key account management kind of a sale. If you look at somebody selling equipment, then you have the process where a lot of cold calling gets done, followed by, somebody shows interest, there is a need identified, and so on and so forth. Many organizations started looking at productivity. When you started looking at sales for productivity, they found that a lot of time is actually spent by the salesman in doing cold calling, because that's where his funnel is actually starting to move up. So what they started doing was looking at patterns. What kind of customers do salespeople cold call? Of course, there's a strategy around it, and it's driven by that strategy. How long does it take for a customer move from cold to warm to hot? So in order to bring predictability to the sales pattern. But what they also did, they found that there is bunch of customers who move fast from cold to warm very rapidly. And they identified this set of customers, and then they saw that these customers had already identified the need themselves, and they proactively reached out to the salesperson And therefore, they moved from cold to warm very rapidly. Now, what did this tell the company was that you can actually start segmenting your customers in a multiple way. So how do you bring a customer who has already identified the need and therefore reaches out to your salesman? And then what they did was they looked at that bunch of people, and then they started building multiple touch points with those segment of customers. There could be, and there were multiple touch points, multi-channels being used. They were using telecalling, they were using networking platforms, they were using so telecalling, networking platforms, they were using mass emails. Multiple channels were being used for remote calling to these customers. What they then found that when that funnel reached that salesperson, what we call as, just a step before warm, the conversion rate was much faster because the salesman could handle far more number of customers. And this didn't happen, during COVID period. Somebody did this actually in the healthcare industry about a decade back. So that's again use of analytics, converting it to segment your customers appropriately. And then it leads me to something else that we have been started experimenting with, which is called next best action. I think it's in one of your use cases that Karthik presented. Now, next best action is a very interesting area. It basically tells the salesman what content to show to a customer, what channel to use to show that content, and what follow-up he or she needs to do. Now, it sounds very easy. Many salesmen in the, I will call it the good old days because I'm old, they would know what to do because they know those customers very well. But today with multiple touch points, it becomes very difficult for a salesman to understand where is that customer in that journey. You have customers attending webinars, getting exposed to scientific discussions. I'm talking healthcare on the product that is being used. Their competitors talking, so on and so forth. So what does this next action do? It starts looking at masses of data that has been created. For example, in one of my roles, last role that I was doing, we started analyzing. We had close to 36 million touch point data with customers. Now, 36 million is a hell of a large number. You can't, if you and I start doing it on an Excel spreadsheet, most probably we'll spend the next 3 years looking at the data. We took that data. I am not an expert in all the tools that you showed. That's your domain, Karthik and Amit. But what it basically started doing was it started building personas of that customer and says these customer segments react in this manner. And then what it then told us that if you want to move these customers on this journey along this way, you need to use this kind of channel and you need to use this kind of content. So from a descriptive analytics, it started moving to predictive analytics, saying that if you do this, then this is what will happen. I don't know if, I've been in healthcare for the last decade, maybe 2 decades. I'm not certain anybody has reached the prescriptive analytics stage. That's way ahead. We're still in the journey between descriptive and predictive analytics. But what it then goes on to tell us that you are able to not only map the journey, but run it efficiently and make your resource that you have deployed far more effective and efficient. What it also ends up doing, it frees up a lot of salesman time because you're running a lot of stuff at the back end and telling him what to do. So it frees up a lot of time. So their ability to connect with a larger group of customers becomes much larger. And then, of course, there's another use case around training, but I'll come around to that because that was an amazing use case. What Robert was speaking about and Premal was saying, COVID times, you can't do face-to-face training. Healthcare guys love face-to-face training. They love face-to-face training. Basically, it gets them off the field. That's the way I look at it. They love face-to-face training. You drill them. They do repeat the whole training when the thing is going on with live doctors or without live doctors. In COVID times, you can't do it. So what we started building was, how do we train them remotely? But at the same time, started using keywords. What are the keywords that person should use when delivering a message? what kind of facial expressions the person should have whilst delivering a message. So when, say, I am the person and this is the call, I am recording my, the spiel that I will give customer, there is a tool watching and learning. And at the end of it, it coaches and says, at this point in time, you should have used this keyword. At this point in time, you should have changed your facial expression. So you use an NLP sitting behind, which then starts learning as it goes by and starts telling the salesman how to make the best pitch. So 3 use cases. I think it's phenomenal what analytics and leading to what it can do. Definitely build a far more effective and efficient field force and better customer retention.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks, Anil. I think that was, I think, great. And some very interesting use cases that you spoke about. So moving to you, Robert. One of the things while we're talking about use cases here, right? So the first thing comes to data itself. So are there enough data, which is the way it is captured, as getting consolidated? Do we have enough visibility itself of the data? What is your perspective of what kind of data system that you normally look at? Any experience that you have of looking at first understanding the information itself, right? From reporting to dashboard creation to then that move into use cases, which Aril was speaking about. I will suggest if we can keep the answers crisp from now on, because I think we kind of will be running out of time. Yeah. Thank you.
Our company is not so big so as to have such a massive data as Anil was mentioning. We are in a smaller scale, but yes, we are growing.
Robert, we are very difficult to hear you actually.
Still, yeah, now difficult.
Slightly better, yes.
Try without this. Is it better now?
Much better. Yes.
Much better. Okay. So I, as I mentioning, our company is not so big, and we don't manage such a number of data as Anil was mentioning. But anyway, it comes also with some challenge for us. We do have more subsidiaries, and the business keeps growing considerably year and after year, so it's getting more and more important. So anyway, the data sources we get is from, of course, from our ERP system, right? And then what we implemented is what we call it the OA platform, okay? And we set up a way so as to input more marketing data now, the sales report and reports from the salesmen to come through there. And we include the subsidiaries, right? The subsidiaries reporting from there as well. And of course, we get all the financial reports from the financial department. So that is also some important data that we get, no? Challenges, so data being maintained manually in Excel sheets, delay updation, incomplete, inaccurate data, limitations to handle the data, okay? Benefits of the implementation, especially with this OA platform, has been clear visibility of business performance, and operations capture quick wins and identify areas of concern performance of sales rep, tracking market opportunities and pricing variation, etc. Okay, the process setup was by the way responsible, the IT responsible to manage, and the quality of the data, the consolidation of the data has been of the creation of the reporting framework. Defined data sources has been done a little bit between several departments. So we've done the automate the data processing and do the deeper implementation of the platform. And also there were some problems, and we found the root cause and identify the issues. Yeah, that will be our experience.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks, Robert. Prebil, coming to you. So what you've seen is that the sales function is getting impacted by digital transformation over the last couple of years, and that has got accelerated recently because of COVID as well. And CRM platform is one of the pieces which has kind of come in itself for just as the sales function. So what do your feeling of the CRM kind of platform helps sales guys in their process? Does it also provide, let's say, intelligence part of it? So what is your view?
So in terms of what, the start Anil was mentioning about is in the earlier days, as he said, the good old days, the only point of contact with the customer was that sales rep on the field, the frontline sales rep. The biggest boon of the digital transformation is that there's a central repository today lying with the organization as to what has been the history with that customer. So in the event of that guy moving on, it's not that you are reinventing the wheel or starting from scratch with that customer on your relationship with that between the organization and the customer. So that has been the biggest boon which I see the digital transformation has helped one with the organization in terms of the data repository which is there. Second, in terms of the various CRM models, the other thing which and the other digital options available is in terms of now today most of the organization for their products have apps available. So the funnel which earlier the contact points, one sales rep able to talk to maybe at 50, 100, 200 customers max to in a month's time has now exploded to an exponential level because of the customers themselves being able to get the information and identify their needs beforehand, as what Tanil was mentioning, that straight from the lead being generated to closure stage happens, or negotiation stage comes in immediately. There's no in between steps which are there. So from a cold lead to a hot lead goes from within, let's say, 48 hours. So that is one area which this whole digital transformation and this how the sales cycle has been a great booster. In terms of CRM platforms, yes, there is a great tool in terms of ability to analyze the data, splice the data as per as I mean. So earlier approach used to be like an AK-47, spraying all the bullets, hoping in hell that we will be able to hit some of the targets. Moving with the help of this data and segmentation, where you have a sniper scope approach, where it's customized targeting for each and every customer and offering a solution which meets his or her requirements. So that is where this whole CRM platforms and digital transformation has brought in a big revolution in terms of sales cycle. In terms of the logistics and supply chain, if you see in the past also, it has been there, and AI and all these platforms have been able to help. I mean, from the earlier days where the forecasting used to be haywire all across, and you used to be sitting on months of inventory, to days of which has come to days of inventory, and obsolescence levels which were used to be off the roof are now virtually non-existent. So it was there. Now in the sales also, it is bringing the same sort of value addition with each and every month and year as it goes by.
Sure, thanks. Thanks, Premal. Coming to Karthik, so what is your take on this? Is the CRM platform ends up only as a workflow planning tool, or it would be, or it has more? Where exactly it is? And I would prefer the answer can be fairly quick.
So first of all, I think I just want to resonate with the panelist thought, right, on in terms of Anil, Premal, Robert pointed out, right? We need to be more specific with the customer. There has to be a segmented approach. It has to be fast and it has to be data driven, right? Those are the four themes that we have actually talked about. So for any sales force, definitely CRM is a very good start, right? Because it brings a lot of operational capabilities. It gives you the data that you can have a look at. It gives you good discipline, right? I mean, without CRM, it is definitely not possible for somebody to say, and even the customer perspective, correct? So I think it gives. But what it doesn't give is maybe the right business insights, right actionable insights, and even how do you plan for the future. I think these are some things a CRM cannot give. Therefore, there is a strong apparent need for us to have CRM and the analytics engine sitting on top of the CRM to give you the final end outcome, which means what? Which means at any given point in time, you know the customer buying behavior, you know what strategy will work with a certain customer, with certain geography, and you'd also know some kind of actionable insights based on the market dynamic that is changing. So all these things the CRM will not be able to give. You need an analytics engine to be sitting on top of the CRM. But at the same time, I would say a good combination, Amit, would be a CRM and analytics engine. I would never say that don't invest in CRM and directly go for analytics engine. I think some of the organizations have done that, and they've also seen good progress. But if somebody can combine both, afford both, I think that's the best model. Is mine.
Sure. Thanks, Karthik. So what we have clearly seen is that role of analytics is definitely it's increasing over the course of time as we have more digital tools coming in. And Anil mentioned about the use cases where it can move to and how to move from, as Premal put it, as AK-47 to sniper approach itself. So with that being the case, moving to quickly last bit, we only have 9 odd minutes, so we'll look to keep this section brief. So this talks about more in terms of adoption of analytics itself. So while you're talking about different use cases, what we should look at going to itself, but how do we get there? So are there resistance on the adoption side? So first question to you, Premal, in terms of what do challenge you see in the adoption in sales? Are they normally overwhelmed with data? Any insights coming out? What is your feeling on it? And let's keep it short if possible.
The problem is, if I look at it, is my experience has been, the biggest challenge is in terms of the understanding of the role of analytics. And analytics, as what Karthik was mentioning, CRM is the genesis where the data is generated, and the good quality data would funneling into the analytical models would be able to give you the right answers to your and solutions to your problems. The problem is today, most of the organizations, the CRM is being treated as a tracking mechanism or a performance management tool rather than a tool which helps improve. It's more become for a sales rep, my plannings have been in right way. It's more of a calendar. And I just need to put that I have visited this customer, because the more data I put in, there will be questions. A bigger problem is the senior leaders also using it as is that I just need you to give me the details. Analytics and what is to be done will be work fine. So that basic communication and understanding of role of each and every component of this tool is the biggest lacuna in the whole adoption strategy. And more in terms of, you need to have patience. You cannot expect the results to come in either from the CRM model or from the analytical model in the next 6 months or 1 year. It's a long journey and a process through which, as in more, you keep on adapting it, keep on putting in good optimal data, you will have better understanding. So that's where in a nutshell, stop using it as a tracking mechanism or a performance management tool, and use it as a business productivity enhancement tool set in your quiver of armament.
Sure, thanks very much. So clearly, I think change management is one big part of this, right? So I will come to you, Anil, on this in terms of how do you think the sales leader should plan this journey itself, and what's the approach which will help embed it?
I think Premal has hit the nail on the head. Nobody likes change. All of us hate change, actually. But if you and honestly, until especially in this space, unless this is seen as an enabler by the sales organization, that this enables me to perform better, this enables me to get business objectives easier, it's going to be tough. And yes, a lot of people still use it as a performance measurement tool, which is like, that's the way it is. Managing this change is very, very tough. What I have done at the front end, especially in the sales organization, is very difficult. The way to go in my mind, as Karthik mentioned, go the route of dashboarding, understanding of the dashboards. What does it, what kind of decision making it enables, and how does it sharpen the commercial edge, is the way I would suggest. But faster than that is at the back office. And there is a lot of data available which is generated by the CRM, whether it be by the salesman, whether it be by multi-channels. There's immense amount of data to allow you to map customer journeys. So if you combine and build that right engine, when I spoke about next best action, next best action doesn't come. You need to build the engine behind which predicts what's the next best action. That if you do a soft launch, I'm not so sure, but the possibility that the change can be handled, because then you are building a reason for that change. What is the rationale for that change? And then helping the salesman do his job far more efficiently. I'll give you another very small example. Many of us have been salesmen in our time. And I think the best document we used to create was at the month end, which was called the expense statement, which we used to submit and then used to go in, and then 30 days later, it'll pop up into your bank account. Then we started seeing that these expense statements were becoming a bit challenging. So you started putting more rules and stuff like that. And then 30 days became 60 days. It's very difficult. When we brought in the change and said that approval is rule-based, and actually a bot can do, because it's rule-based, a bot can clear expense statement. Can you imagine what was the kind of response in the community? Says, no, this is not possible. But then we converted and attached that with a chatbot where querying could be done. Because it helped the salesman, freed up his time, he need not worry his money is coming or not coming. He knows where exactly it is. It freed up a lot of his time, built his efficiency. The adoption was very fast. Now that is the front end of it. What did it do at the back end? It allowed us to start looking at how you can bring efficiencies around spends, multiple things. Then you can then start getting into the dashboards, because the data has all got, if I may use the word, mechanized, and therefore your ability to do something with that data becomes very, very high. I'll stop here because I can go on and on. So change management is going to be extremely critical in this, getting enrollment of the sales organization, and especially the people at the front end, who should not see it as a supervisory tool rather than a tool for enabler. You will see the change very fast.
Sure. Thanks, Anil. So in the interest of time, we will directly jump to a audience question at this stage. So there's a question which has come in. So the question says that I have largely viewed a digital intervention as frequency builder to ensure TOM and not a conversion tool in the healthcare ecosystem. So does the panel feel that this holds true? And if not, any use cases for the same?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, that many a times the CRM is being used as a digital planner for the sales rep. And that's where the whole communication would help in terms of it's not, that you can do it with any, even your phone, you don't need a CRM platform for it. But if you start looking at the data and looking at what is the next best thing which can happen with that data, with the analytics, that's where the whole meat on the bones are.
Sure, thanks. Thanks, Premal. So I think very interesting. So I think a very interesting session where all the panelists gave their respective views. A couple of key pointers which I saw was from a adoption standpoint, it's about the right messaging itself to the Salesforce, right? It's more an enabler to the Salesforce. Yeah. They should not view it like a monitoring mechanism itself. So that clear communication is important. And plus, I would also say that gaining the trust itself of the Salesforce, right? That takes time, but that's where we have to get to by making the quick wins and help sales guys achieve their respective incentives itself. So that's clearly is coming out from adoption standpoint, while some very interesting use cases which Anil shared on the from a role of analytics and AI itself. So with that being the case, I would look to thank all the panelists. So thank you for your time. It was great that you could come on board and share your experiences. I hope that the listeners have learned, and we are happy to take any additional questions which will come our way, and we'll get it answered from the panelist itself. So over to you, Rishu, for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Amit. And this brings us to the end of our session today. We hope everybody enjoyed the session and the discussion as much we did, interacting with each other. On behalf of Next Time, I would like to thank our distinguished panelists and participants for actively participating in the session during the poll audience questions as well. All our participants are welcome to connect with us. And thank you once again, everyone, for joining in. Good day and stay safe. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.